everybody who's not supposed to be here, I will let them know that they are in the wrong room.
Thank you,
So,
Fatima. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm doing the round of the rooms now.
all right.
Bye.
If somebody from the tech team can grant Yahya Ishaqji the right to share his screen because he's going to be taking care of the timer. Thank you. Also, Aziz, I'm not sure you are in this room, so please make sure
He is
he
in this
is.
room. Yes. He is my partner.
Who is speaking?
Ra'a Ferjani.
Okay, so Ahmed Amin is not with you anymore.
Ahmed is only will be gone for today because he had someone passing away from his family. So I have a substitute debater.
Okay.
Okay, Fatima, are you here? Fatima,
Yes,
can you hear?
Danny, I'm here.
Yes, yes. Have you checked if all your debaters are here?
Yes, all of them are here. I'm just waiting for one more wing adjudicator, Ashwaq.
Okay. Have you checked if any debaters should be in room 3 or room 1, but are here by any chance? Because it's a
No,
bit confused.
no.
So, but just a question, guys, if you can hear me, everyone, if you are a debater and you should be in room 3 or in room 1, this is room 2. Okay. I just came from room 1, and they're missing an opposition debater, I think. Thank you. I'll check if Ashwa is in another room by any chance.
Thank you, Danny. All right, then I think we should start. Hello, everybody. I hope you're all doing well and you are keeping the same motivation and enthusiasm that I have witnessed yesterday. It's very important that we keep momentum throughout the different phases of the competitions. For those that didn't meet me yesterday, I am Fatima Zahra. I'm a master facilitator at the program in Morocco, and I will be leading today and I will be chairing the session. And along with me in the panel education, there is Mohammed Abdul Jawad Omar and Ashwaq Madani, who is yet to join us. And in the team of reporters, we have Nahia Kanj, Ahmed Yassin, and Yahya Ishakti. Before we start, I want to check if all the debaters are here and if I have all the teams right. Starting with the opening government, I have Mar Lopez and Ahmed Sajjana. Are you both here?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And who is Prime Minister and who is Deputy?
I'm Prime Minister.
I'll be the deputy.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to the opening opposition, Julia Blake and Hajar Maish. Are you both here?
Yes, we're both here.
Okay, hi guys. Who would be leader of opposition and who would be opposition? A deputy.
Hajar will be like the leader of the opposition, and Julia will be the deputy leader of the opposition.
Thank you. Moving on to the closing government, I have Nicholas and Isra. Are you both here?
I'm here.
Okay, awesome. Then who would be what?
Nicholas will be the
Member?
member of the government, and I'll be the whip.
Okay, thank you. Last team, Rawa and Aziz. Are you both here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So who is who?
I am the member of opposition, and Aziz will be the whip.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Fatma, so everybody's here, right?
Yes, all the debaters are here. If you can, Anna, I think we're still missing Ashwaq. She is an adjudicator, and I think also.
Okay.
Okay, then I think we have everybody. I was going to say Ahmed Yassin, but I see him here.
Okay, so everybody adjudicator.
I'm here.
Hi, Ahmed.
Hello, dear. Hello.
Everybody's here.
Yes, then I think we are all full. We are whole. Thank you, Anna. Well, I wanted to remind you guys of the motion, although you already know it, of course, but the motion of this debate is this House will work with concerned governments to prevent immigrants from risking their lives in the Mediterranean. And of course, before starting, we need to set the rules that you are all going to follow. And first thing, as you see here, you have 5 minutes to speak for each debater. And of course, you have the first minute, which is a protected minute, and the last minute is also a protected minute. So please make sure you know when to give your POIs and when to take your POIs. Also, about POIs, you have 15 seconds in each POI, so please do not exceed 15 seconds. And between two POIs, you always have to wait for 15 seconds again. So if your colleague gives a POI and you want to give another POI, please wait for 15 seconds before giving your POI. And the way we're going to be given POIs, and I'm sure you already know this because you've done it yesterday, but you open your mic, you say POI loud and clear, and you wait for the speaker to give you the floor or to say that they will not be taking your POI. And for the speakers, please make sure you always answer the person who is asking for a POI. Whether you want to take it or you don't want to take it, just make sure you vocalize and say that you are going to take it or not. You also are entitled to points of order that you give to the adjudicators in case you feel that the rules of the debate have been compromised or violated. So after the debate, we are going to, or you are asked to leave the room for 15 minutes. Just for the panel of adjudicators to do their deliberations, and then afterwards we will all convene back here and we will share with you our feedback. And for the results, you are all going to have the results later on in the other big room. It's going to happen at 5:30 GMT +1. So adjust that according to your time zone. I think I have said everything that I have to say. So if you have any questions right now, any concerns, anything that you want to make sure of, the floor is yours.
I have only one question, please.
Yes, please.
So, for example, if the speaker is not heard very, very well, can we give a point of order to make them speak louder, for example?
I think you wouldn't have to, because I will be paying attention to that. So if one speaker is not very, very clear, or we can't hear them, or something is going on with their internet, I'm going to point it out.
Also, if there is any missing connection, we have the timer stopped until the connection is restored?
Yes, we will make sure that happens. And if we lose you, we are going to wait for 2 minutes until you come back. So if you come back, you can carry on with your speech. If not, then we will have to move on. Do you have any other concerns that you want to address? Okay then, so I think we will start. And again, reminding you of the motion, this House will work with concerned governments to prevent immigrants from risking their lives in the Mediterranean. If we can have the timer shown on the screen. Thank you very much. Prime Minister, are you ready?
May I start?
Okay, just a second. Just wanted to reiterate, please, when you are speaking, turn on your camera because the adjudicators will have to see you. And for the others, please keep being muted until it is your time to do your intervention. All right, Prime Minister, if you are ready, we are.
I am. So good evening, everyone, dear honorable adjudicators, dear distinguished government team and fellow opposition members, warm greetings. I hope everyone is doing great and above all, staying safe in this huge pandemic situation. So nowadays, even though the COVID-19 is the main topic in social media, the word immigration don't go unnoticed, as every year, thousands of migrants and refugees enter in Europe crossing the Mediterranean Sea. And in today's motion, we are going to discuss this topic. So I could start by saying that as the government team, we stand that we would work with concerned governments in order to prevent immigrants from risking their lives in the Mediterranean, as they are doing every day, linking this to the Sustainable Development Goal number 10. So, first of all, as being the first speaker, I would like to define the keywords of the motion. I will start by explaining what are we talking about when we refer to concerned governments. When talking about this, we're talking about the hosting countries, the one that receive each year thousands of immigrants, as I have already mentioned before, countries such as Italy, Greece, Malta, and Spain. As well as these, we are talking too about the sending countries, the ones where migrants come from, such as Syria, Afghanistan, Eritrea. Then I would like to define the word immigrant. According to the Cambridge English Dictionary, it is defined as the person who has come to a different country in order to live there permanently. However, we have to take into account that immigrant is not a term used universally to refer to those living in a country other than their birth country, as happens in North America, for example. Nevertheless, I would like to expand this definition with the UNESCO information that stands that nowadays, when referring to an immigrant, we are referring as the person who is forced to leave his own country due to the lack of resources, due to the bad life condition, or due to the dangerous situation of this country, such as a war. Then I would like to define the word prevent, that again, according to the Cambridge English Dictionary, is defined as to stop something from happening or someone from doing something. Then I would like to define the word risking, because it's a common word, but it doesn't go sanitized, as it's really important in this context, as we are talking about risking life. Is it defined as the possibility of something bad happening? And contextualizing this, we are talking about doing something dangerous that could injure or even kill you. We are talking about lives. So now, as I have defined the keywords of the motion, we will be discussing from the security aspect, the human rights aspect, the collaborative and partnership aspect, and more importantly, relating them to the Sustainable Development Goals. How are we going to do so? We believe by working collectively to create and secure pathways and channels for these immigrants. So our first argument will be that we strongly support a motion because immigrant to the Mediterranean path has been regarded as the riskiest path due to the lack of data security, which leads to the death of these immigrants. To support this claim, according to the Médecins Sans Frontières, the number of people who have died trying to reach Europe by crossing the Mediterranean has reached an all-time high and is becoming comparable to what MSF is used to seeing in war zones. And according to the International Organization for Migration, in the first 4 months in the year 2020, this year, Mediterranean migrant arrivals reached 16,000, while deaths reached 200, compared with 400 through this same period in 2019. And according to the United Nations International Organization for Migration, at least 18,000 people have lost their life in the Mediterranean crossing since 2014. According to the United Nations Refugee Agency in 2019, again, more than 1,000 people have died in the Mediterranean Sea trying to reach Europe, making it in the 6th year of the road that the big milestone has been reached. So we are talking about a huge worry of numbers. These are not surprising because the reason behind this number is the lack of tracking and security regarding the migrants' human rights watch. As a result, we state that the solution to stop people dying in the Mediterranean on such huge scale must include offering people feasible alternatives. So based on this argument and supported evidence—
Thank you very much to the Prime Minister. You have exhausted your time. Thank you. Now moving on to the Leader of Opposition. The floor is yours.
All right, I'm ready. I just would like to make sure if you can hear me, by the way.
Perfectly.
All right. So, refugees and immigrants are risking their lives to reach Europe. Many have fled conflict and poverty. If they make it to the borders, they are often met with violence and ill treatment. Again and again, their human rights are denied. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Today we're dealing with a very sensitive issue, an issue that has been relevant throughout history. Despite continuous efforts and strategies, this issue is still an unsolved problem and leads to detrimental consequences. In an attempt to put an end to this issue, if not to reduce only its consequences, this House would work with concerned governments to prevent immigrants from risking their lives in the Mediterranean. So I would like to thank the Prime Minister for defining the motion. She was successful at defining all the parts, although I have some problem with some definitions. For example, the definition of immigrants. Immigrants are not necessarily forced. Sometimes they're just want to immigrate for example, better life conditions. And here I'm not saying that they're mainly because of war. The second thing that she missed is that immigration happens only to go to Europe. She missed the point that this immigration happens also for the northern parts or the southern parts of the Mediterranean. For example, from South Africa, people immigrate to the North Africa, and that also could be also a form of immigration. And a lot of people suffer from a lot of ill treatment, humiliation, and dangers there also. So here, let me move on to tackle some of the things that she mentioned. The first thing that I would like to emphasize is that she didn't give a clear strategy. Also, she mentioned that they're going to tackle it from the perspectives of human rights, security, sustainable development. Yet she failed to give us a clear idea in order what this government is going to follow. Also, I'm very glad she gave us the statistics that are very, very dangerous in the present, and therefore we have to come up with this, an effective strategy in order to combat them. And so let me first start with my team's strategy. So the strategy that we have developed must be global, but also specific, because it will have to take into account the particular conditions of each country. In this regard, I believe that cooperation between the states of the South and the North of Mediterranean plays an important and central role. Why this strategy is important? Well, because the issue cannot be solved if push and pull factors are not to be considered, and the reasons behind them are not to be considered. I would like to reaffirm that we're not trying to put an end to immigration, but rather to provide a safe, documented, and fruitful immigration. That I would like to recall everyone that everyone has the right and freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state, and the right to live in a country, including his or her own, and to return to his or her own country. So I would like to say that we have to acknowledge the complexity of these immigration, that it does not happen only in one way, it happens in different ways. Therefore, as a leader of the opposition, I suggest that granted.
You have said that everyone has the right to move from one country to another. Do you think that someone who has no passport has the right to move from one country to another?
Thank you so much, and that leads me to my point that I'm going to suggest. I want to say that we have to welcome immigration programs that are adopted by some countries that allow immigrants to integrate fully in the host countries, facilitate family reunification, and promote a harmonious and tolerant, respectful environments. And therefore, we have to encourage more programs that facilitate the application for these immigration. Therefore, immigration will not only be illegal, but rather it will be facilitated so that these people can immigrate if they are suffering from troubles or issues or whatever. Also, I would like to emphasize the importance of dealing with effective measures to combat trafficking in persons and smuggling of immigrants, recognizing that these crimes may endanger the life of migrants and subject them to harm and exploitation, and vice versa. Also, I would like to recommend allow that non-governmental organizations to carry their life-saving missions. As we've seen, for example, immigrants that are traveling to other countries are allowed to die because these non-government organizations are not allowed to do their efforts to save these people. Therefore, I would like to emphasize that this government should work with concerned governments in order to stop life risking for immigrating people. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much to the Leader of the Opposition. Now the floor is for the Deputy Prime Minister, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to confirm whether you can hear me clearly.
Loud and clear.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, educators. Thank you to the opposition team, fellow proposition. Well, first of all, I'd like to restate our stance, which is that we support the motion that says this House would work with concerned governments to prevent immigrants from risking their lives in the Mediterranean. But before I start, I'd like to refute some claims and misinterpretation that was made by the first speaker. She said we didn't give a clear strategy. Well, the Prime Minister clearly said, how are we going to do this? And we said we believe by working collectively to create a safe and secured pathways and channels for these immigrants, because we're going to be discussing it from the security aspects, from the human rights aspects, and collaborative and partnership aspects. And we think the first speaker of the opposition by mentioning that the human rights of freedom. So we're going to elaborate more on that. And as the second speaker, I would like to, our first speaker said, I'd like to discuss it from the human rights aspect and the collaborative or partnership aspects, more importantly, relating them all to the SDGs. Well, talking about the first argument, which is the human rights aspects, we totally strongly believe that supporting this motion, we support this motion because objecting such call will be a violation to human rights. To support this claim, I'd like to remind everyone that the core goal of the 2030 agenda for the SDG is no one should be left behind. And in this case, we're talking about the migrants. According to the Human Rights Watch, anti-smuggling measures should freely comply with binding obligations under the European Convention for Human Rights to protect the rights to life, liberty, and security, and effective
Points of information.
Rejected, and the non-refoulement obligation. Well, this supports the security that was mentioned, that we said we're going to go through, the strategy we mentioned, which is by creating a safe and secured pathways for these immigrants. Well, I would like to remind you that the reason why we mentioned the human rights issue is because according to the UNHCR, over 60% of the people rejected who took the dangerous sea journey in the first 5 months of 2015 came from Syria, Somalia, Afghanistan, countries torn apart by war and generalized violence, or from Eritrea, which is ruled by one of the most repressive governments in Africa. So here we're not talking about just rejected. We're not just talking about a solution for the hosting countries, but also human rights for the sending countries when we talk about Afghanistan, Syria, like the first speaker said. Now, relating it to the SDGs, first important fact is that we need to understand that the issue of migration is relevant to all the 17 SDGs. And most importantly, to the core of the 2030, like I mentioned before. But to break it down to this motion, we'll be relating to the most relevant ones, which is the SDG 10 and the SDG 17. On the SDG 10, which is SDG 10.7, which supports our policy that says facilitate orderly, safe, regular, and responsible migration and mobility of people, including through the implementation of plan accepted.
Does the government realize that this is a short-term solution, did not provide any long-term solution? What will happen after this step of clearing a path for these immigrants? Will you have a budget to take care of them? Will you have essential mechanism in dealing with these illegal immigrants?
Thank you.
Well, like I was saying, first of all, I'd like to finish my target that was mentioned, 10.7, we support our policy, which is to facilitate orderly, safe, regular, and responsible migration and mobility of people. Well, I'd like to recall one of the steps that was taken by the IOM and the population, which answers your question, which is have developed a methodology to measure the indicator of 10.7.2, which is the target of the SDG 10, the number of countries with migration policies to facilitate orderly, safe, regular, and responsible migration. Our second argument is the partnership and collective aspect. Well, if you look at the motion itself, it's a call for a collective effort, recalling also the points made by the Prime Minister, which is calling everyone to work together. Now, to strengthen this argument, I would like to talk about the SDG 17, which is to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. The target 17.18 Also 17.18.1, which is the proportion of sustainable development indicators produced at the national level with full disaggregation when relevant to their targets, in accordance with the fundamental principles of official statistics, where we talk about lack of statistics and the risk of people dying without the government knowing. Well, we believe with these convincing arguments and facts, recalling previous actions, we believe that we've been able to prove our stance. Therefore, we strongly and totally support this motion that states that this House would work with concerned governments to prevent immigrants from risking their lives in the Mediterranean. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Deputy Prime Minister. Now moving on to the Deputy Leader of Opposition. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, honourable members of the jury, dear members of the government and fellow respectable members of the opposition. We are having this debate just 4 days after World Refugee Migrants Day. Today, we are dealing with this heated debate, a heated debate that is all over the world, but particularly here in the Mediterranean, that of analyzing how governments can be assisted in order to prevent immigrants from risking their lives within the Mediterranean. Yes, we need to work with concerned governments. They cannot do it alone. People are risking their lives in the Mediterranean and we need to do everything we could possibly do to help them individually, but we must also assist governments in doing this. We must take into consideration both sending and receiving governments. We must strive to prevent immigrants from risking their lives from the onset. However, we cannot deny the reality of people fleeing their countries in pursuit of a better, safer life. And what an irony. People leave their country for a safer life, only to discover that the journey is also very dangerous in itself. We must therefore ensure protection from the receiving end. We must ensure that there is no ill treatment when they arrive, that the phenomenon of non-refoulement is truly upheld, and ultimately that such immigrants are treated with dignity. As humans, we must ensure that we are men and women for and with others. I go on to support the leader of opposition in saying that we need to avoid the possibility of people having false hopes, that we need harsher punishments for human traffickers, and the policy must cater for the conditions of every country. Each country has its own story, its own burdens, its own limitations, and for these reasons we cannot generalize as the government of this House is trying to do. The Mediterranean Sea has been often considered as a graveyard of humans, of those lives fleeing from injustice, from poverty, from persecution, from inequality. These people travel on a petty excuse for a boat, and that is dangerous in its own right. But let's not think for a second that these are the only dangers people
points of information
face. Yes, granted.
Well, here we're talking about concerned government, and we look at the hosting countries and the sending countries, both of them. We feel like the most related immigrants are the ones facing the wars, not the ones looking for better life. Thank you.
Yes, and that is why I included actually every immigrant. The leader of opposition also actually gave the definition of immigrants, and they are not only those people who are leaving because they are persecuted, because they are fleeing as refugees, but they are also leaving because they are in search of a better life. Thank you for that question. The Mediterranean Sea, as I was saying, is often considered as a graveyard, but
point of information
rejected, but those aren't the only issues. This is the story of 27-year-old Marie. She was raped and she saw rapes, and that is another danger. She speaks of the dangers women face on this journey and its repercussions. The United States High Commissioner for Refugees
point of information
rejected shows how 85% of those rescued or intercepted in the newly established Libyan search and rescue region were disembarked in Libya, only to face detention in appalling conditions. We must also take into consideration the detention centers. Rejected. The detention centers often, in some countries, face limited food, outbreaks of disease, and one cannot forget the way such migrants are living in these detention centers now during this pandemic. If you look at detention centers in Malta and Libya and another part of the Mediterranean, we see a lot of migrants who are seriously in danger of their life, of risking their life. And this trend is ongoing and must stop. This brings me back to today's motion. Not only do we have to stand with refugees like Marie, who has faced dangerous experience, and many other in order to make sure that the risking of their life is minimized, but we also need to stand with the governments to ensure burden sharing. And here we bring in other concerned governments to ensure that they have adequate resources. We should not be overlooking the quality of life of these immigrants. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Now moving on to the Member of Government. The floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Opposition, for very interesting points. I think we all agree actually on the same topics, that these journeys are very unsafe for the people traveling from different countries, and the root causes we do actually seem to be agreeing with the topics. This is exactly why we don't want people to go in the Mediterranean Sea and risk their lives. It is not just a humanitarian issue. These people, of course, face danger or death just in life, as explained also by the opposition, but it's also a way of exploiting people. It's a way of making money of people's desperate situations. And this is something that we don't want to. We don't also want the experienced people to live non-developed countries and to go to live a life which is not full life in the new country. The opposition was asking for concrete strategy. So here is the strategy for the government. We need to create safe ways for entering. This would, for example, mean that we would have an application center in the leaving country, so people would have to go to the sea. This could be run by the United Nations. All the applicants could start the asylum process here. This, of course, requires that all the European countries will take these people in the end if they get the asylum status. We don't also want to have huge refugee centers where people are just put to wait. Yes?
Does the government realize that the numbers of people immigrating through the sea is not just 1,000 or 2? In 2015, it reached the peak of 1 million immigrants. So how would this asylum seeker grant all these immigrants a safe path into Europe?
Yes, of course we do understand this. And according to UNHCR, there are apparently, even in Libya, there are about 60,000 asylum seekers. But in order to provide a process which is fair and which doesn't make people to risk their lives, I think this is the only solution. Of course, this will require a huge amount of money and this will require political will, but this is the only human option to do this. What we also require that we should protect and help the refugees in the places where they are. We should focus on the root causes. We should create an environment in the countries of origin so that people can actually stay. We should create job opportunities. We should find a meaningful way for these people to have a life in where they were born. This means that we need to focus on development work. We have to focus on conflict prevention. What we also need to support before we're able to solve this issue, that we have to support the local communities where people are waiting. For example, in Libya, those people. We need to support the local Libyans in order to support these people.
Point of information.
What this also requires, yes?
So you mentioned that we need to take care of the people before they leave and during the journey. What about the people, these immigrants when they arrive at the receiving government? Thank you.
Yes, of course, this is an issue as well. We have to focus now. But what our plan is that people would not have to cross the Mediterranean Sea anymore. That there will be other ways to apply for asylum, for example. And this is also one of another points what we want to do. That we want to have a training for the Coast Guard. That we have actually safe ways for them to return people back, not the way what we're doing now in, for example, in Italy, that people are left on the sea and they're dying there. We cannot use this as a tool to threaten people not to go to somewhere. We need to find another way for people that they would not go to these desperate ways of finding a meaningful way to their lives. After we're able to improve the police safety, we need to focus also working with the local governments. It doesn't mean that the current situation, for example, what Frontex is doing in Sahel, that we're preventing people from leaving the area in the first place. We should be able to stabilize the region so that people, for example, wouldn't have to even cross the Sahara. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the member of government. Now moving on to the member of opposition, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to remind you that our motion for today tackles the issues of immigrants and whether we should work with concerned government to prevent them from risking their lives in the Mediterranean. Solutions have been proposed before by the European Union about training specialists, about helping prevent lifeguards and training them, about policies made with the countries that immigrants' departure from. But the core issue, you cannot sugarcoat it if you do not return to the roots of the problem. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that we should work with concerned government in waging a war against the roots of the problems. What is the root of the problem here? What causes these people to die in the sea? Who puts these people on the sea, puts them in danger of being enslaved or human trafficked? Here, ladies and gentlemen, the core issue is with the people promoting the fake European dream, which means smugglers and human traffickers who exploit people, giving them false hope for a European dream in exchange of money or exchange of their exploits. Before I tackle my arguments and my perspective, I would like to comment first on the claims made by the government. First of all, the government kept recalling that they will give them a clear path. We are all here for human rights and immigrants. Yes, they kept recalling a clear path for these millions and thousands of immigrants to Europe, but actually gave no mechanism. How will these countries receive them? What kind of a budget will these concerned countries provide for those immigrants? They're going to be exploited again for low wages in these countries, as is happening now? Or are they going to provide them some sort of a new total place to take in these millions of people? Moving on to the second point is that they kept recalling that we should collectively work on these issues without actually giving a solution. The solution is not temporary as just given a clear path. We're looking for a collective effort to combat the roots of the problem, that is the human trafficking and these smugglers who give the opportunities for the immigrants and risk their lives within the sea. Moving on to the third point, which leads me to my argument, the third speaker spoke about that the only solution is to grant access to all these immigrants and gave programs that are already implementing, and yet we still have illegal immigrants because not all receiving countries would like to have that huge amount. And they are right, they do have a specific capacity for their economy. Moving on, there is a contradiction within the government saying that we should grant them all access, but at the same time, they keep saying that we should train Coast Guards to bring them back to safety. So here, we don't know whether you are for clear path or you are for them returning home. To my arguments, here we're tackling the promoters of the delusion of the European dreams. Ladies and gentlemen, 2015 witnessed a peak of 1 million immigrants crossing the sea with thousands of them dying through it. Who puts them on the sea? That is the human traffickers that exploit them for the amount of money. The concerned governments here are Libya, Nigeria, Tunisia, Italy, and Spain and Greece as receiving and sending countries or departure countries.
Information.
Yes, please.
Well, you said that the core problem is human trafficking. Are you saying that we should neglect the people? Syria, 34%, Afghanistan, 12% that are coming from war.
I said that people who risk their life in the Mediterranean Sea are put there by the smugglers. With that being said, that actually explains my whole point, that the core issue here is not immigrants themselves. We can give them a clear path that does not risk their lives, but we do not think about the short term. We have to put the problem to an end by the roots. No, thank you. So here I have a report by the SFR European that says that Nigeria became one of the central countries at the heart of Europe where people departure for their illegal immigration, and that the deployment of French and US troops there are put by a European plan to protect or to deny those immigrants from having their illegal ways moving to Europe. How about we deploy those troops into combating smugglers and human traffickers? Another point is the policy made by Italy to Libya states that they should close their borders to this issue. But what happens when we implemented that policy? We had concentration camps. So ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to focus on the root issue here, which is the promoters of the fake dream of European dream of having the prosperity of life when they cross the sea. Most of the time, 95%, the smugglers are not even on the boats with these immigrants. Thus, ladies and gentlemen, we strongly believe that the root problem is the promoters of such dream, the promoters of human trafficking and exploiters of these people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, member of opposition. Now the floor is for the government whip.
Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, please go on.
Hello and greetings to everyone. As you all know, America was once called the promised land, where dream can become true. However, by the rise of the 21st century land, and for this reason, many people have been risking their lives pursuing such a lifestyle, and therefore causing a lot of death, not only an enormous number of deaths, not only in an annual average, but in a daily basis. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today debating the motion that says that this House will work with the concerned governments to prevent immigrants from risking their lives in the Mediterranean. We, as a government, we are supporting this claim and strongly. So first, let me start with rebuttaling what the opposition speaker has just delivered. Well, concerning the first speaker, she has directly asked us about our policy. Instead, could not provide us a policy. Let me clarify for you that we had a simple and clear policy, which was centered in providing opportunities and jobs and providing jobs for the immigrants in their mother countries instead of leaving and fleeing to another foreign countries. In addition to that, the first speaker has mentioned that they will allow people to move from their country to the host country freely without any restrictions. Let me tell you that you would create a huge chaos between the north.
Point of information.
Denied. In addition to that, she said that they will provide opportunities and they will facilitate how people can move from the developed countries or from a country to another as an immigrant. Well, you are denied here. In fact, you cannot provide everyone the chance to go there. And here this argument, this policy or argument that you have given will only foster the phenomena of migration towards these countries, because everyone will be looking for such a lot. In addition to that, moving on to the second speaker, she have focused about saving the lives of the immigrants. Instead, we are here. You cannot save them by letting them go through the seas. Instead, we have provided a policy that can save their lives by preventing them. And here is the key term of the motion. And the third speaker have said that the root problem. The root problem is lies in the developed countries. The developed countries had a privilege. It had technology, new lifestyle. Instead, it is in fact a responsibility that the European countries should spread this lifestyle. Moving on to my team's arguments, which there's. Yes, go ahead.
Does the government whip realize that these arguments that they mentioned is the arguments of the government? Does the government realize that you are stating your side is argument and stance?
Government whip, you are muted.
As I have said, I have been reminding you of your points, and my team has provided valid resources and strong argument based on human rights aspects, which is the major aim of the SDGs. So overall, all I can say is that Europe has become this staple of decent life and high standards of living. And we believe it is their responsibility to share and help transform life for humanity. And since the giant economies like America and China are too focused on competition, Europe should be the voice of the reason and unification by working with the concerned government to prevent migration from risking their lives. And this is the motion that we are supporting today. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the government whip. Now moving on to our very last speaker, opposition whip.
Everyone, can you see me?
Yes, we can, and we can hear you.
All right, very good. So greetings, everyone. To summarize what has happened in this debate, on one side, you have empty proclamations of human rights and solutions that we have seen does not work. And on our side, on the opposition, we have shown you that this is a matter that requires serious pragmatic solutions. And let me show you how. So first, actually, I'd like to thank the government whip for clearly showing how contradictory the state of the government's position is. So as we have noticed, for example, we have the Prime Minister telling us that they will secure pathways on the Mediterranean, while the member of government is telling us that they will train the Coast Guard to stop them from coming anyway. So are you gonna let them come safely, or are you gonna stop them? Please show us what exactly do you mean? And no, thank you. And on another hand, we have, as I said, empty proclamations of how we should how we should protect their human rights. But as we can see, what's happening on the ground has nothing to do with this. So let me actually tell you what has happened when the concerned governments have cooperated. And the only way really is well, stopping rescue ships, paying people to take brutal measures really to stop people from coming, and really slowing down as much as possible people from reaching their rejected. Meanwhile, we have clearly shown, as the member of opposition has told us, is that we have to tackle the root cause of the problem. We need to hit the source, and that is the smugglers. The smugglers are fueling this. In many ways, the concerned governments are profiting from this, and lots of corruption going on. And so if there's a solution that needs to be made, is to directly hit the smugglers, make this unprofitable, and stop these empty hopes of a European dream. And yes, sure.
Okay, so you said it doesn't have anything to do with human rights, and what you're talking about now is human trafficking. Don't you think you're contradicting yourself because human trafficking is violating human
That
rights?
is not
Thank
what I
you.
said. I did not say this has nothing to do with the human rights. What I directly attacked is the fact that of making these empty proclamations of human rights. We do care about human rights. We want this problem solved effectively. We do not care about empty rhetoric. So we need to solve these issues. What is happening right now is that the concerned governments are cooperating, but very ineffectively because it simply is tenable currently for them. But the true solutions are radical, and if you hit these organized networks of migration and actually make sure that the migrants can be safe at every point of the journey, that is what is going to solve this issue. So we have clearly shown you this. Yes.
So basically, you're agreeing with the statement, or you want people to cross the Mediterranean and risk their life. Is that your position, or what do you want to do?
No. That is not my position. My position is this is going to happening. This is happening. This has always been happening, and there are only two ways you can tackle this. Either so people are migrating legally. If you're going to stop them from doing that, they're going to find illegal ways, especially when this is fueled by wars and conflicts and very horrible living conditions. You're only going to make the process very unsafe, very dangerous. So in order to make this safe, you need to hit the people that are making it unsafe and not look for ways to manage the problem. We need to solve it, not just slow it down. So with all that being said, as I said, if there's we can conclude this debate in simple terms. On the government, we have empty proclamations. They want us to believe that we can solve this in these simple ways. On our side, we want serious solutions, and for that, you should vote for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the opposition whip, and thank you to all of the debaters for this very enjoyable debate. Now I will kindly ask you to please leave this room because the adjudicator deliberations will start, and we will see you again in 15 minutes. Yahya, if you can please leave the room too. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Ashwaq and Muhammad, do you guys need a minute or shall we start now?
For me, it's okay if we start now.
Okay, Ashwaq?
Yeah, me too, I'm ready.
Okay, good. So do you want to go, how do you want to go about this? Shall we start with the Prime Minister?
No, I think we should let us vote first who's you think the winner team, then we talk about in details.
Okay, who's your winner team?
For me, the opening government.
Opening government, okay. Ashwaq?
For me, the closing opposition.
Okay, well, for me too. The closing opposition has the highest score.
Okay, so let me convince you to vote why I choose the opening government since 2 against 1. For me, the closing government have not tackled the issues or the motion with good strategy. They saying that they will tackle the roots of the immigration and they will cut the routes to stop immigration, which also kind of working if we think about it. And also the government, the closing government say that you want to tackle the roots. You mean that you are working with the government, and this is kind of work. So for me, their position was not very clear, and also the last member of them were asking lots of questions, which he become confusing. But on the other hand, the opening government, they provide good strategy. They are more constructive. Although their first arguments about the risking of the life was a little bit weak in frame of elaboration and explanation, but I think they were the best in this debate.
Okay, Ashwaq, what would you have to say to this?
I would stick to the closing up position because I think the opening government didn't have a clear argument. They were very hard to follow. Sometimes they're confusing. There is no refutation. There's no evidence or explanation. You just the statement, then you go for example, and then you. It was very hard to follow. Plus the depth of it. It was easy to be rebutted by the other two teams of the opposition, compared to the closing opposition that they really got each other's back, and they got the upper opposition back too. In terms of performance, they performed really well, especially when it comes to structure. They took points of information and answered them. Yes.
But let me tell you something. Is it clear for you that the closing opposition has a good strategy or has a good content? They talk about cutting the roots. They're talking about in themselves working with the concerned government, if you focus on their content. So their strategy was not good. For me, if they're choosing to another solution, like instead of working, imposing sanctions or imposing rules like a legitimate, it was better. But they've been talking about working with the countries who has the problem. And for me, that was really the both teams, opening and closing, going the same path. They both agree on risking of the life of the immigrants. They both agree in many points. For me, the opposition was not an opposite way, was with the way of the of the government, but they didn't have that distinguish. They didn't have clear strategy for me.
What I think is that, okay, I kind of agree with you, but I feel that the closing opposition, although their strategy was not the most effective, it was not the best, but among what other debaters said, it was the most put together and the most complete. And as Ashwaq said, they had each other's backs. I didn't feel that they were talking about two different things. They were talking about the exact same thing. And that's something I didn't feel with the rest of the debaters. They were going in different directions. And that's one problem that I have with the opening government. They tried to shove the SDGs somewhere and it didn't stick. They were like, okay, so our strategy is that everything falls into the SDGs. And so what? Nothing was clear to me when it came to the opening government. And I know they did a lot of good refutation in the points of information, not in the speeches themselves, because I feel like especially the Deputy Prime Minister didn't really do any type of refutation. But they were very effective in points of information. However, for the closing opposition, especially for the member of opposition, I feel that she did a really great job in her refutation, her rebuttal. As I said, the strategy was well put together.
Yeah, I agree with you. She's the best.
Yeah, but I still agree with you. It was not the best. But in this context and in this debate, I feel like I like it the most.
Okay, so we will run a vote since you both agree on the close government, on the close opposition. I will go with you. So, although I'm
Okay.
not convinced, okay.
Well, honestly, I'm not convinced with the opening
uh,
government either. Plus, I have a
oh,
problem
yeah,
with the
that's
prime
no problem.
minister.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like if we compare the opening government and the closing opposition in terms of style, um, the the closing opposition were way better because the
Yes.
prime minister was not really the best. She had a lot. She
Mm.
struggled a lot.
She defined unnecessary terms, and you should put it in the
Yeah,
feedback. Okay.
exactly. She defined
So
very unnecessary.
shall we go to the last team for your point of view, or we continue second and
Yes.
the third and the
Mm-hmm.
fourth? For me, the
Yep.
last team,
Last one.
for me, the last team was the closing government, because the closing government was unconstructive, and also they didn't manage well to deep in the issues or the emotions. They stick with the argument, the same arguments that previously said, and they didn't have also good reputation on good construction.
I totally agree with you.
Ashwaq.
Ashwaq, what do you think?
Yeah, I do agree, but for me, the last of the opening opposition. Um,
Opening opposition?
yeah, the OO.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially the leader of the opposition, the argumentation, we didn't get the argumentation until it was rebutted. So
Me
until the
too. Me
different,
too.
started rephrasing her arguments, then say, oh, so that was the argument.
Uh, I think Hajar, she's from Morocco. She didn't refuse the argument. She just refused the policy that been imposed by the government. So yeah, she's done very weak in her speech.
And also,
Yeah.
I feel like she kind of failed to adjust her arguments to the motion and her stance. I feel like her arguments were just arguments in the air. They didn't necessarily serve her stance.
But what's distinguished between this team and the closing government, that Julia done well. She rebuilt the first argument, and she refutes a little bit better than the web for the government, who or she didn't done well in terms of webbing. So for me, as I will stick with the fourth for the closing government.
Yeah, me too. I will go for closing government as the fourth one.
Okay. Well, what about you, Ashwaq?
I don't know, the closing government scored second for me because they had their strategy and also they had taken some they had showed some good reputation. No, reputation, only the member of government who scored well. Also in terms of structure, what I like for the closing teams is that they have to deliver the new approach or the new strategy, and for the closing government, the member of governments really did that. That's why they scored second.
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe we. Yes, Fatima, if you had something to say to Ashwaq, maybe she changed her opinion or not.
I don't know how to change her opinion. I'm very surprised that she found that the member of the government scored second because he scored
Me too.
he scored really bad with me.
Yeah,
I feel like he wasn't
Special.
consistent.
Yes, he wasn't consistent at all. He started by as a delivering a speech. When he refutes, he's not selling that refuting. He was not consistent for me. So yeah.
And the POIs startled him. He couldn't answer the POIs. So
Yes,
for me,
he
his
ran away. Yeah.
reputation.
So I think from this speech we agree on the third and the fourth, since we compared the opening opposition with the closing government. So we agree that both are relative to each other. So they are the third and the fourth. I think the third will be on the closing, in the opening government, and the fourth for the closing government. The third for the opening opposing team, and the fourth for the closing government.
Okay, you lost me again. Say it again.
Okay, the third team will be the opening opposition. The fourth team will be the closing government, and the second team will be the opening government.
I would agree with that, although in my scores here, I actually have the opening.
You need to change the scores if you find that you need to change.
No, I agree with that. I totally agree with what you said. So we have the closing opposition as first. Second is opening government, then opening opposition, then closing government. But I don't know what Ashwaq thinks.
Are you happy, Ashwaq, or not?
Yes, because I do agree, because I totally missed the point that they didn't reply to the points of information compared to the other debaters. So yeah, that's it. I do agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
And in between, yeah, after I adjusted the notes, yeah, it falls into the same pattern like you said.
I have questions. Do you want to tell them feedback, or the feedback will not be given in this round?
Well, Danny said that this is going to be a silent round, but I know that's for the scores. But I don't know for the feedback, if we're supposed to give feedback or not. What do you guys think?
If it's not given, but we shall go to the scores. I can give you my scores for each debater individual.
But I think there is some feedback that is worth sharing, to be honest with them.
Okay, for me, the first feedback is about definition. We should talk about definition and what we should define and what not. For second, the refutations and the arguments, the consistency of the speech must be submitted and delivered in a way that the listener know where you are. So, and also in time of in terms of timing is necessary when you are putting your arguments, when you are refuting. So I feel that there is no time management. I feel that especially in the webs, they are summarizing at the last minute. So that's also my feedback.
Okay. And I feel that some of them were confusing refutation and arguments. They were using their arguments to refute what the others have been saying. And I know a lot of them were reading. I could see it, meaning that they're not really actively listening. They had something already prepared and they just wanted to use it. So it's very important to say that refutation relies on what the others said.
We must give them.
Say your argument.
We must give them excuse because the motion is really difficult, especially for the opposition. The opposition will be difficult to convince the educators. So it's really not balanced motion for me.
Yeah, I feel that too. It's not a 100% balanced motion. And I think that's what created the confusion a little bit with the debaters.
Yeah, yes. That's why sometimes an arguments were built and the other can rebuttal it because he with that argument, for example, the risking of the immigrant's life, you can't rebuttal that because you are with him. So this motion and the position really weird, some kind of bizarre.
Yes, I totally agree. Ashwaq, do you have any other feedback?
Yeah, I was going to tackle the point of asking questions. If you ask another team a question and they ask for a point of information, you should grant it because you can't ask them a question when they want to reply to it or comment to it, say no thank you, because it's like talking to yourself and it diminishes the interaction of the debate. Also, I wanted to ask you guys about the opposing this motion. This house, it should be like this house would not work with those concerned governments, or it should be not allow those people to leave?
Yeah, if it not allow the people to leave or immigrant, it would be better, I
It
think.
would be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, we cannot work on something without including arts. You cannot not operate with government. I mean, with who are you going to deal with?
Because there's a lots of verbs, action verbs like work, prevent. So they have to decide either work with the concerned government for the immigration issue, or saying we will prevent immigrants to go to Europe. So this has two clash points or two verbs that it's a really difficult. Uh, I really great and blessed by these debaters. They were good, really good to. They were unlucky
Yeah,
and
yeah,
really
yeah.
good to tackle this problem.
Yeah, I think the phrasing should have been reconsidered at this motion, to be honest. Because when I first read it, I was like, what is the opposition supposed to say?
Yeah. For me, if I opposing, maybe I say that not concerning government, but the whole world or something like that. Or I don't know, but I would not
So
standing
yeah,
against
it
this.
forces you to have very open arguments. That's the
Yeah.
thing. And that's why I didn't like in the opposition. Their arguments were very open, but then again, they have to, because this is how the motion is made.
So if you have time, we must put the scores. I think I can give you my
Yeah.
score. You can write
Okay,
them
just
in the
give.
paper. So okay.
Okay.
How about we run through the debate by debaters. Each debaters we give them a score and we take the average. Okay. Within each debaters. For
Whatever
example,
you, I think what I'm going to take from you is the score of each. Do you want to do each debater, or do you want to do
yes.
each team?
No, each debater.
Okay.
Okay.
I just wonder if we have enough time before the participants will join again.
Yeah, I think we don't have time, and I also have to adjust my score because it's totally different from what we agreed on.
Okay.
So
I will
I
send
think
it to you. I will send it to you privately on the message.
Okay, thank you.
And for me, I will send you the sheet via email.
All right. Thanks. Then I think we can start letting people in, whoever is responsible. So please start letting people in.
Fatima, I'm sending you. Just I'm writing them, so you confuse me.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, how are you?
Sorry for the delay. We were just sorting something out with the panel of adjudicators. First of all, before giving my feedback and before yielding the floor for the rest of the adjudicators to share their feedback, I just wanted to congratulate you guys. I feel that you have done a really great job during this debate. I was really impressed with your performance, with how you did during the debate, and I wasn't waiting for this. I was positively surprised, that is. So congratulations to all of you. You really are awesome and you did really great. Although there are a couple of remarks that we would like to share with you just to make your performance better and to make your interventions more effective. So the first thing that I want to address is arguments and refutation. Now I know that the motion was a little bit hard. It was not the easiest motion to debate, but I still felt that there were some debaters that confused argument with refutation, and they used their argument to refute. And it showed that they were not really addressing the exact points that the opposition were bringing up. And sometimes it did show, especially that we had people that were reading off their screen, and it felt like they're just reading their arguments and they're not really interacting with people throughout refutation or rebuttal. So we would really like you to pay attention to that. Don't use arguments and think that it's a way of doing refutation, but just make sure you answer all the points addressed by the opposition and then move on to your arguments. Also, some of the arguments, I feel that they were not tailored to reflect the stance of the debater. I felt that there were some very, very general and generic arguments, and they were very open-ended, that it didn't feel that they serve the stance of the debater who's saying those arguments. So please make sure that the arguments you use always reflect your stance and reflect what you are trying to what you are trying to fight for in this debate. I hope that that is clear. I know there are other remarks, but I will leave them to my colleagues to let you know what are the remarks and feedback. Mohammed or Ashwaq, who wants to go?
Ladies first, Ashwaq, go, please.
Thank you. That's so kind of you. So I would not say too much. I only have one remark, which is about when you're asking the other team a question and they ask for a point of information, please approve it, because you're asking them a question. You're daring them on something. When they want to answer you, you don't reply or you don't approve that point. It's like you're afraid of them. It's either you're afraid of them or you're saying falsehood, which I know is not the case, but it just happens that we're so going with our speech that we tend to neglect points of information. However, they are so important as they enrich the interaction of the debate, which is really crucial. Yeah, other than that, as Fatima said, the motion was hard, but some arguments were so general. And yeah, congratulations for all the teams. And yeah, just remember that debating and learning is winning itself. So the concept of winning is really fluid. So yeah, you're all winners no matter what the results are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwaq. Me also, first of all, I would like to congratulate you about this effort and about this performance. It was really tough debate and tough motion, because the motion, it's really difficult to tackle. And we talk about with Ashwaq and Fatima, and we said that this motion need deep analyzing for the opposing and proposing to present their arguments in a way that they're not contradicting with each other, and the way in the way that we convinced. I feel that the debate went, both teams went together in the same routes. There's sometimes that arguments presented by the other teams, but the other teams can't rebuttal it because the arguments are, they agree with it. So, but they are in some way. For me, what I would like to advise you, first of all, is the definition. When you are trying to definition a motion, you need to define the important, and you need to frame it, not define like prevent or concern. You need to define the general meaning of it, not in the term of dictionary. And I'll also advise you to pay attention to the construction, and you deliver your speech in a way that the listener or the educator understand where are you, and not to mix argument with reputations and so on. Lastly, I would like to congratulate you again. It was really among the most difficult motion I've seen during my history of debating. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mohammed. Again, reiterating the obvious, you did really great during this debate, and we are all really proud of your performance and everything that you have done so far. So see you guys in about an hour to announce the winners. Thank you. Mohammed, can you contact Ashwaq outside of this? I can't hear you. But if you can you please let her know that I need her scores because I still didn't receive them?
Okay. Shall I give your email or what? Or she come back to this Zoom meeting?
She can use my email. It's in the collective emails that Danny sends.
Okay. I'll talk with.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for leading this session. It was lovely to be accompanied with you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. Bye.